feeling lost in life, and why that feeling isn't what you think. Let's be honest. Feeling lost doesn't start with drama. It doesn't start with collapse. It starts quietly. You wake up one day and something feels off. Nothing is technically wrong. Your life still functions. You still move, talk, respond, work, smile when required. But inside, something shifted. There's a gap between who you are and what you're doing. A silent distance between your outer life and your inner world. It's not depression. It's not crisis. It's disconnection. You start asking questions you don't say out loud. Why does this feel empty? Why does success feel flat? Why do I feel behind even when I'm moving? That's when fear enters. Because not knowing what you want is scarier than failing at something you once did. Most people never sit in this feeling. They scroll. They distract. They double their speed. But you noticed it. And that changes everything. There was a version of you that made sense. The student, the achiever, the responsible one, the dreamer, the strong one. You knew your role. You knew your direction even if it wasn't perfect. But now, that version feels tight and natural, almost like a costume. You try to act the same way, chase the same goals, care about the same things, but something inside resists. This is not laziness. It's not weakness. It's identity friction. The old structure doesn't fit the new awareness. And when identity collapses, it feels like you're losing yourself. But in reality, you're shedding a version that expired. That's why it hurts. Your brain loves certainty. It wants plans, timelines, guarantees. Feeling lost removes all of that. There's no clear next step, no obvious direction, no solid answer. So your mind panics. It whispers, "You're behind. You're wasting time. Everyone else knows what they're doing." But here's the truth. Most people aren't certain. They're just committed to a script. They follow momentum, not clarity. When you feel lost, you're no longer hypnotized by momentum. You stepped outside the script. And that space between scripts feels like free fall. But free fall is not failure. It's transition. It looks like everyone else knows exactly where they're going. Career paths, relationships, milestones. It feels like they were handed a map. And you weren't. But here's what you don't see. Most maps are borrowed. Borrowed expectations. Borrowed dreams. Borrowed definitions of success. They don't question them. So, they don't feel lost. You questioned. And that's why you feel alone. But questioning is not weakness. It's awareness waking up. People will try to help. Just be positive. Find your passion. Set goals. Trust the process. But their words bounce off you. Because advice assumes clarity. And clarity hasn't arrived yet. You can't force purpose. You can't manufacture meaning. When you're lost, you're not looking for motivation. You're looking for alignment. And alignment doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to honesty. What if feeling lost isn't a mistake? What if it's a recalibration? When you feel lost, illusions break. You can't pretend anymore. You can't chase things that don't resonate. You can't ignore the inner voice. This phase strips you down. It removes borrowed identities, social masks, automatic goals. It creates space. And space feels empty before it feels powerful. But nothing new can enter if the old still. One of the heaviest thoughts during this phase sounds like this. What if I'm wasting my life? It creeps in quietly. When you sit still. When you don't have a clear answer. When your days feel slower than they used to. The stillness feels unproductive. The questioning feels inefficient. You look around and everyone seems to be building, achieving, accelerating. And you feel paused. But here's the misunderstanding. Growth isn't always visible. We've been conditioned to measure progress through motion or promotions, milestones, announcements, visible change. But internal reconstruction doesn't look impressive from the outside. It looks like doubt. It looks like uncertainty. It looks like someone falling behind. Roots grow in darkness. Before a tree expands upward, it expands downward. Before transformation becomes visible, it becomes structural. This phase feels like stagnation because your external movement slowed down. But internally, you're reorganizing beliefs, reevaluating values, dismantling illusions. That is not wasting time. That is restructuring your foundation. You are not paused. You are recalibrating your direction at the deepest level. And that kind of work cannot be rushed without consequences. When the discomfort rises, you want answers immediately. A new plan, a new goal, and no identity. But rushing clarity often leads you back to another borrowed script. You choose what feels safe, not what feels true. And then years pass. Being lost requires patience. It requires resisting the urge to fill the silence too quickly. Because clarity doesn't shout, it whispers. You don't need a 5-year plan. You need awareness. Notice what drains you. Notice what energizes you. Notice what feels heavy. Notice what feels quietly right. Follow small signals, not dramatic signs. Clarity builds through observation, not force. Your only job right now is to stay honest. That's harder than it sounds. Most people escape this phase. They numb it. They silence it. They bury it. You didn't. You stayed. You questioned. You felt the discomfort instead of running. That is courage. And courage changes direction. The moment you stop lying to yourself is the moment your real life begins. One day, this will make sense. You'll look back and see, this wasn't emptiness. It was transition. This wasn't confusion. It was awakening. You weren't behind. You were detaching from what no longer fit. Feeling lost didn't mean you had no path. It meant your old path expired. And the person you're becoming needed silence before direction. You were never lost. You were becoming.